Hello everyone, welcome to CloudShot 365. So in this tutorial, we are going to talk about deploying and managing Azure compute resources. So myself is Devraj. I am a Microsoft certified trainer, solution architect and cloud security engineer. Let's get into the topic. So before starting to deploy resources on Azure, we need to know about what is the difference between resources and resource group. The resources are nothing but the services that you are going to create on Azure, like virtual machine or storage or SQL databases or Azure recovery services vault or any services you are going to create in Azure will be considered as a resources. And what is the difference between Azure resources, Azure resource group? The Azure resource group is a logical container which have the collection of resources that you are going to create. So each resources that you are going to create in Azure will fall under one resource group. So what is the advantages of using resource group is you can manage the billing and you can manage the security. So you can just allow a single user or a group of user to have an access to the specific resource group. Or else if you want to, if you have a test resource group and you deployed a multiple services inside the resource group, and once your testing got completed, you need not to go ahead and delete all the services one by one. You can just go ahead and delete the resource group so that the entire services inside the resource group will be deleted. So the resource group will be as a tightly coupled, so it's not a loosely coupled. So tightly coupled means all the resources will be tightly coupled inside a single logical container. Now we move on to our next slide and see how the structure of resource group looks like. So this is the structure of the resource group. So first of all, we have a management groups, and followed by we have a account subscriptions, and each subscription will have multiple resource group. The resource group will be have test or production or pre-production, pre-prod, and each resource group will have resources like virtual machine or VNet or a storage or a databases or an Azure automation account. So if you want to remove all the services inside the test resource group, you can just simply delete the resource group and the entire services which is running inside the resource group will be deleted. So this is the structure of how the resource group looks like. So next we are going to see about what is virtual machine. A virtual machine is an isolated computing environment created by abstracting the resources from a physical machine. A virtual machine is essentially a computer within a computer, and they allow multiple operating system, that is OS, to exist simultaneously on a same machine. So these are some basic definition that uh, how or what the virtual machine is. Let's go ahead and see the diagram. So the virtual machine is nothing but splitting the hardware services. So if you have a hardware, so consider this is an server like Dell or iDRAC server. So it have an enormous amount of compute power. So it have a CPU, memory and storage. So on top of that we install a software called operating system using a special software called a hypervisor. So using this hypervisor split the hardware resources. Like it will slice the hardware, and each slicing hardware will be used to boot up separate operating system. So if it comes to this picture, so we have a hardware and followed by we installed a hypervisor. Just consider this is an VMware EXXI hypervisor, and this hypervisor will slice the hardware and it give a compute space to boot a different kind of OS. So consider this is a Windows OS or this is a Linux OS or this is a CentOS or Fedora OS. So each OS will run a separate binary and application. So if you want to run 10 different application on our organization, we need not to go ahead and purchase a single individual compute workstation for each application. Instead of that, we can buy an hardware and install the EXXI, the hypervisor, and we can split the resources, and we can boot up the application. Okay, let's see some scenario that deploying virtual machine on on-prem versus cloud. So what are the benefits we are going to get while deploying a virtual machine on on-prem versus cloud? So consider this is your on-prem. So if you want to deploy a virtual machine on on-prem, so you want to invest on a data center, and you want to invest on hardware, and you want to invest on storage devices, and you want to invest on networking devices, and you want to invest for the maintenance manpower. So these are the things you need to sort out if you want to deploy an application or a virtual machine on a on-prem. So what are the main benefits on creating a virtual machine over to on-prem? In cloud, Azure, we have IaaS, infrastructure as a service. These services help us to deploy our virtual machine, and the advantage is the cloud vendor will take the entire responsibility of the data center, hardware, storage, network, and maintenance of the data center. So you can just log into the portal, and you can deploy the operating system, and you can just deploy your application and binaries to run your application. So here you can save your cost, time, and availability of your application. So before creating virtual machine in Azure, we need to understand the virtual machine size. The virtual machine size is nothing but based upon the business requirement or the application usability, we can define our virtual machine workload. Workload is nothing but it is comes with a different type of CPU, memory, and storage. In Azure, we have a different type of sizes. So based upon the sizes, we have a family like general purpose, and we have compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, and GPU graphical optimized, and high performance compute. Let's go to the Microsoft document and see what type of virtual machine sizes we have. So let me come for the first virtual machine, which is for general purpose. The general purpose has a size of DSP3 and TV3. So these are the size modules. So each module of the machine will consist of a certain amount of CPU, memory, and storage. And you can see in the description, this is a balanced GPU to memory the ratio, and this is ideal for the business purpose for testing and development. And the size of the general purpose machine is from small to medium and low to medium traffic web servers. And if it comes to the compute optimized, in compute optimized we have FS and FSV2 size of virtual machine. So this is a high CPU to memory ratio. So this is good for the business requirement for good to medium traffic. So consider you have a limited number of traffic web servers on the cloud. So or you have a requirement, you can go ahead and use the compute optimized VM. And if it comes to the memory optimized, this is ideally for relational database servers from medium to large cache into the memory. So if you have a databases and you have a large number of processing between your transactions is going between your web server and the database server, and you can use the memory optimized model. And if it comes to the storage model, you can use it for big data analytics and SQL, no SQL, big data databases, or you can use the storage optimized VM, and it has a size of LSV2. And if you want to use the high rendering graphics or heavy graphics solution for your business requirement, you can go for the GPU based VM size. And if you want the ultra power of CPU, and you want to work with the high-end applications, and it require a high-end compute, you can go for the high performance compute. So if you want to know more about any specific family, example, if you want to know more about a general purpose family, you can just click on the general purpose link, and here you have the general purpose sizes, and each sizes which define a particular size of virtual machine. So if you want to know about DV3 and DV3 series, you can just click on that and you can know what are the configurations that you are going to get. So this is the Azure compute unit you are going to get, and if does it support premium storage, or it is supported for live migration, and what type of generation VM generation it has. I will give this link in the tutorial description so you can use it for your reference. So next we are going to see about the demonstration of deploying a virtual machine on Microsoft Azure portal. Let's get into the demo. So before deploying a virtual machine, we need to understand one thing. So whenever we deploy a virtual machine, it is not only going to deploy a virtual machine compute resource alone. It is going to deploy some dependency services. So let's go to the hierarchy. So first of all, we have a management group, and management group will be managing some Azure subscription, either one or two or three or four subscriptions, and each subscription will have a resource group, and followed by the resource group. Now we can go ahead and deploy our resources inside the resource group. So this resource group, consider we create a web server. So this web server, this is only the compute power, that is, it is having only the CPU and memory resources. So we need to add and other services to manage the virtual machine. So first of all, the networking. So this is a VNet. So this VNet will consist of several network subnets. So the machine will fall under any one of the subnet, and we have a network interface card. This network interface card will manage the networking for the particular virtual machine. So this networking card will be assigned with a public or private IP address, and we have a storage. So this storage will be used to store our virtual machine data, and we have a network security group. This network security group will be either attached to the VNet level or a network interface card. So this will filter the incoming and outgoing of the each data package. So it will monitor the ports. So if we allow the port RDP 3389, so if we allow the port 3389, then only we allow to remote and access the particular virtual machine if it is Windows, and if it is Linux, we need to allow the port SSH22 to access the virtual machine. So now I am an Azure portal. So let's go and see how to deploy a new virtual machine. So as I told, before deploying a virtual machine, we can create a Azure resource group, or while creating a virtual machine, we can define a new resource group. But for the purpose, I'm going and create a resource group. So go to the top and go to all services and click on resource group. I already have the resource group for my testing and development purpose. So again, I'm just adding a new resource group. So first you need to select a subscription. I'm using a Visual Studio subscription, and followed by that I'm going to enter the resource group name. So this is for demo class, and I'm selecting the region as East US. So if you want to deploy the resource group on the particular region, you can access any of the region to deploy your resource group. For the purpose, I'm using East US, and just give next, next, and create. So now we have created a demo resource group for our testing purpose. So here our resource group is reflected. So now we can go ahead and deploy a services. So on the top you have a search bar, you can type virtual machine and select OK, or you can go to the top and go to all services and you can just go to compute and here you can select virtual machine. So already I have two VMs. Now I'm going to deploy on another VM, add a virtual machine. So here also you can define your new resource group, but we already created a resource group, so I'm just mentioning as the same resource group which we have created earlier and defining the virtual machine name. So for the virtual machine name I'm just giving as demo web server, demo web server, and I'm placing the web server in the same region where I have placed my resource group, and I don't need any availability or anything. We can see the availability options in the later tutorials. And if you click on the images, we have the list of images we have. The images are nothing but the operating system. So if you want to deploy a Ubuntu server or you want to use a Red Hat or CentOS, so we have a variety of operating system. So here I am selecting the Windows Server 2019 data center. And now see, you have a size. In the previous slide we seen about what are the size of virtual machine for the each general purpose compute and storage optimized. If you select on the if you click on the select size VM, here you have the list of sizes for the each VM. Depend upon your subscription type, you can able to see all the VM families and sizes. For the general purpose, we have from DS1, if you see, we have a vCPU of 1 CPU. So let me explain you clearly. So if we comes to the general purpose VM, and if it is D1S, DS1 V2, we have a 1 vCPU and we have 3.5 GB of RAM and we have a maximum of 4 data disk with IOPS of 3200 IOPS, and the temporary storage which is 7 GB. Temporary storage is nothing but the temp storage. So if you save any data on the temp storage and if you reboot the virtual machine, the data on the temporary storage will be deleted. And similarly, if you comes to the B1S size of virtual machine belongs to general purpose. You have a 1 vCPU and you have 1 GB of RAM and you have 2 data disk with a maximum IOPS of 320. IOPS means input read and write operations. Input read and write operations per second. So similar to B1S, we have many virtual machines sizes, that is B2 or D4. So this is for general purpose, and you have a D series and a B series VM. So based upon your requirement, you can go ahead and select the sizes for the virtual machine. For the testing purpose, I'm just selecting the machine with B2 MS. So it is 2 vCPU and 8 GB of RAM. And now we need to select the username and password for the virtual machine. To set the username and password for the virtual machine, I am just setting Azure. So some of the standard username cannot be taken as a username. For example, if you select the username as administrator, it cannot be taken because this is a reserved. This one is already taken, so you cannot take. So I'm just taking as Azure admin, and I'm just going to apply the password. And then if you scroll down, we have an option for allowing the port. So we are creating and Windows virtual machine. So by default, it is asking us to allow the port 3389, that is for RDP, to access the virtual machine from the outside of the world. I'm just allowing the port and going to the next option. Now we have completed the basic disk, the basic tab. Then we came to the disk tab. In the disk, we can select the storage type, what type of storage we need for the virtual machine. Here we have a premium, standard, and premium SSD, standard SSD, and a standard hard disk. If you want high performance with a smooth performance, and we can go for the premium SSD, and or else we can go and select for the standard hard disk. I'm just selecting the default, and if you need the encryption, we can enable the encryption on the disk. I'm just going with the default, and I'm again going for the networking tab. So in the networking tab, as I told, whenever we create a new virtual machine, it is not only going to create a virtual compute resource alone, it is going to deploy some dependency services. So now it is creating a new VNet, and the VNet will have a 10 network. From the 10 network, 10 network VM, and we have a new subnet, and followed by the public IP. So if you have the public IP only, we can access the virtual machine from the outside. So if you don't need the public IP for the virtual machine, you can just give none. But I need the public IP, so I'm just giving as a new public IP with the same name of the virtual machine it is creating. So here again, it is confirming the inbound port rule to select. So we are selecting the RDP port 3389. And next I'm going for the management. So if you want to collect our boot diagnostic logs for the particular VM, we can collect and store it on the storage server. Or if you want any guest OS diagnostic, we can select the services on, and we need to select which storage account we need to save the data logs. So I am just going as a default because we are going to create only the virtual machine. So I just give next, 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 and going to create review. So this will validate the settings and the parameters we have passed to create a virtual machine. And this is the charge, that is 5 rupees and 50 paise per hour to run the virtual machine. So this is the service only for running the compute resource. For the storage services, you want to pay separately. So this 5 rupees and 50 paise, it's only for the compute resource alone. So if you give create, it will start to deploy the virtual machine. So you can see the initial deployment, submitting deployment. So the deployment is progress. So now we have successfully deployed our virtual machine, and we got a message your deployment is completed, and you can see the deployment details. Let me showcase the deployment details. So these are all the services which is deployed along with the part of the compute. So we have the web server IP, the VNet, the NSG, and network interface card, finally the web server. Let's go to the resource group and see. So I'm just going to the resource group and demo class, and have you see here the virtual machine and the list of dependency services, that is VNet, storage, the public IP for that virtual machine, storage disk for the virtual machine, network interface card for the virtual machine. So this is how we need to create a virtual machine in Azure. So just to add another information, while creating a virtual machine, you may notice we have an option, we've seen an option like Gen 1 for the each images. So if you go to the images, you can see all the images which is ending with Gen 1, Gen 1. That is the generation 1 VM. So Azure also support a Gen 2. That is a new feature. Let's see the difference of Gen 1 and Gen 2. So the generation 2 VMs use the new UEFI based boot architecture, but the Gen 1 VM which use a BIOS based architecture. And the generation 2 VMs might have improved the boot and installation for time. So whenever you are going to deploy an operating system on Gen 2 VMs, it is very much faster while comparing to the Gen 1 VM. And if you further scroll down, you can see the list of VM sizes which support the Gen 2 architectures VM. So B series, DC, SP2. So these are all the list of sizes which support the Gen 2 VM model. And you can scroll down and you can see the capabilities of generation, each generation. So if it is Gen 1, you cannot have a virtual machine with more than 2 TB of 2 terabyte of data, but in Gen 2 it can be supported. So if you go for the Azure disk encryption, it is not supported on the generation 2 VM, but it is supported on the Gen 1 VM. So you can further go ahead and look for each VM sizes, what are the capabilities. So these are the capabilities of each VM sizes. Let me share the link in the tutorial description. You can use it for your reference. Okay, now we go ahead and try to access the Windows virtual machine which we have deployed on the portal right now. Let me log into the portal. Okay, so I am in the portal. So I can go for resource group, and I can go for the resource group we have created, demo class, and I can open the virtual machine, or else from the top we have the services virtual machine. I can click on that also, demo web server. So here you can see the dashboard for the virtual machine. We have a resource group where the virtual machine is belongs to, and the operating system of the virtual machine, size of the virtual machine, and the public IP address of the virtual machine. And you can see the properties of the virtual machine and all. So to connect to the virtual machine, you can just click on connect, and you can just give the RDP. So download the RDP file. Now we have downloaded the RDP file. Open the RDP file. Click on connect. So it is asking to enter the credentials. So I am passing the credentials. So it is asking for the certification, the RDP certificate to test our connection, and here is our virtual machine is loading. And now the virtual machine got loaded, and so this is the virtual machine we have deployed in the Azure portal. So you see the Windows Server 2019 data center. So on top of this virtual machine, I can install the web server or the particular libraries to run my application. So whenever you create a virtual machine, or sometimes you will face an error like you cannot create a virtual machine on the particular region. That is because if you are using a pay as you go subscription or a free trial subscription, you have a limit to each region, uh, the number of vCPUs you can use. For example, if you are using a free trial or a pay as you go subscription, for the region you can maximum use 4 vCPU, and if you want to use more than 4 CPU, you can reach the Azure support team to increase your limit for the subscription to deploy additional virtual machine on the vCPU resource. How to check the usage means, You can go to your subscription, you can select your subscription, go to usages and quotas, and here you can select all the locations, and I'm just selecting the compute resource. So for the compute resource, so here I can use the maximum vCPU of 20 vCPU. So along with that I used the 15 percentage, that is 3 vCPU I have already used. So if I reached or exhausted the 20 vCPU, the 100 percentage of this particular quota, I cannot deploy more than that. So I need to reach the Azure support team to increase my quota limit. So if you face this kind of issues, you can come here and check your usage, and here you have an option for a request increase. So you can use this option to increase your subscription quota limits. So far in this tutorial, we have seen and learned about what is resources and resource group, and we learn about what is the virtual machine in brief, and we learn about what are the family sizes and what are the families and the Azure VM sizes in Microsoft Azure. And we also seen about the deployment of VM and common problem we are facing while connecting to the virtual machine. And we also see Gen 1 versus Gen 2 VM differences. So on the next tutorial we will learn about the further on the compute domain, how to resize the virtual machine, working with the virtual machine, and properties of the virtual machine. So we, the CloudStack 365 team, will deliver the high-end cloud computing technologies, which is on Microsoft Azure, AWS, and network security and DevOps. So what you all need from your end is, if you like this tutorial, please give a like and subscribe to CloudStack 365 to get all our latest tutorial updates. And if you have any suggestions or the improvement in our tutorial, please give it on a comment section. Have a nice day. Happy learning.